The footage played on loop, grainy surveillance, night vision, a girl stumbling into traffic on Udo's eastern edge, the part of Seoul where street cameras stopped working and nobody asked why. Kang Jun-hyuk sat motionless in the dark viewing room, hands folded, eyes fixed on the screen. His face held the expression it always did, empty, controlled. A mask so practiced it had become his actual face. Behind him, 3 men stood in silence. They had learned, over years of service, that Jun-hyuk's stillness was more dangerous than other men's rage. The footage reached the moment where the girl stepped directly into the path of the convoy. Cars screeched. Armed men poured out. She didn't flinch. Lieutenant Park shifted his weight. He was new enough to still find certain details disturbing, old enough to know better than to speak. But then someone did. "Boss?" Jun-hyuk didn't move. "Boss, is that you smiling?" The question hung in the air like a held breath. Park's throat went dry. He replayed the footage in his mind, frame by frame. Yes, there it was. In the back seat of the lead vehicle, barely visible through tinted glass, a smile. Not large, not warm, but unmistakable. No one had ever seen Kang Jun-hyuk smile. Not at weddings, not at victories, not even when rivals begged. Park looked at the others. Their faces had gone pale. Jun-hyuk leaned forward slightly, still watching the screen. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Rewind it." They did. He watched the girl step into the road again, watched himself lean forward in the car, watched his own face shift. Again, they obeyed. This time, when the footage reached that moment, Jun-hyuk stood. He turned to face them. No one had ever seen him smile before that night, Park would tell his wife later, breaking protocol, needing to say it aloud to make it real. And after watching that footage 12 times, I understood why. It wasn't the smile of a man who found something amusing. It was the smile of a man who realized he just made a catastrophic mistake. Before we dive into how this all began, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. This story gets darker, more twisted, and more dangerous with every part, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why that smile changed everything. Now, let's go back to the night it all started. 72 hours earlier, Amara's lungs burned. She'd been running for 11 minutes, long enough for adrenaline to turn into something more desperate. Her dress was torn at the knee, one shoe gone, hair plastered to her neck with sweat. Behind her, voices. Male, angry, coordinated. She turned down an alley, then another, then stopped, not because she was cornered, because she'd arrived. The buildings here were different, older. The kind of old that wasn't quaint, it was deliberate, preservation as warning. The streetlights worked, but dimly. Shadows moved with purpose. This was So Bingodong's industrial heart, a district locals avoided after dark, a place where police responded slowly, if at all. Amara pressed her hand against the brick wall, catching her breath. Her chest heaved, her vision swam, but her eyes were calculating. She wasn't running from something anymore. She was running to it. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her bra, the only place they hadn't checked. On it, an address. A name. Neither obtained legally. She'd spent 6 weeks researching, $3,000 bribing the right people, one chance to get this right. Behind her, the voices grew closer. "Amara?" She flinched. That voice, she knew it. Her cousin, the one who'd sold her into this. "You're making this worse for everyone." She almost laughed. Worse. As if marrying a man who'd bought her like livestock could be made worse by indignity. She looked at the paper again, then at the street sign. 2 blocks. She started running. The men behind her were faster. Trained, but they didn't know where she was going, and that made all the difference. Amara turned the final corner and stopped dead. A convoy, 3 black vehicles, tinted windows, idling engines. Men in dark suits stood outside, speaking in low tones. One of them saw her first. His hand moved toward his jacket. She didn't wait. She stepped directly into the road. Tires screamed. The lead vehicle jerked to a stop 3 feet from her body. Doors flew open. Guns appeared. Behind her, her pursuers skidded into view, then froze. For a moment, the street held its breath. Amara stood between 2 worlds, both armed, both deadly, and she'd chosen this. If the rumors are true, she whispered to herself, this is my only chance. She didn't look at the men chasing her. She looked directly at the tinted rear window of the lead vehicle, and she said, clearly in Korean, "They lied to you about me." Not a plea, a statement. The kind of statement that assumed the listener already cared enough to be lied to. One of the suited men stepped forward, gun raised. "Move." She didn't. I said, "Move." "Kang Jun-hyuk," she said. The man's expression flickered, just for a second. That was all she needed to know. Inside the car, Junhyuk sat perfectly still. He'd been reviewing contracts when the vehicle stopped. Didn't look up at first. Stops happened. Obstacles, pedestrians, soul traffic. But then his driver spoke. Sir. That one word carried weight. Junhyuk looked up. Through the windshield, a girl, black. Early 20s, barefoot on one side, dress torn. She looked like she'd run through hell. But her posture didn't match her appearance. She stood like someone who just made a chess move. Junhyuk's eyes moved to the men behind her. 5. Disorganized. Civilian clothes but military bearing. Private security. Hired muscle, not his. She stepped in front of us deliberately, the driver added. Junhyuk said nothing. Then the girl spoke. He couldn't hear through the glass, but he saw her lips move, saw his lieutenant's reaction. The lieutenant turned, walking quickly to Junhyuk's window, tapped twice. The signal for priority communication. Junhyuk lowered the window an inch. She knows your name, sir. Your real name. The temperature inside the car seemed to drop. Junhyuk's real name wasn't secret. But it wasn't used. Not in business. Not on streets. Not by strangers who should have no access to anything beyond rumors. He looked at the girl again. She was staring directly at his window now. Not at the lieutenant. Not at the guns. At him. As if she could see through the tint. They lied to you about me, she'd said. Junhyuk leaned forward slightly. The girl's expression didn't change. No fear. No relief. Just waiting. And that's when it happened. His mouth moved. Just at the corner. A smile. Small. Almost invisible. But there. He caught his own reflection in the side mirror and stopped immediately, face returning to stone. But it was too late. His driver had seen it. The damage was done. Junhyuk had built his life on predictability. Not his own. Other people's. Fear was predictable. Greed was predictable. Desperation could be mapped like weather patterns. He'd survived 14 years at the top of Seoul's shadow economy because he understood one fundamental truth. People were only dangerous when you didn't see them coming. This girl had appeared out of nowhere, stepped into traffic, used his name, and done it all with the confidence of someone holding cards she shouldn't have. That should have made him angry. Instead, he'd smiled, because anger was for threats you understood. The smile was for something worse. Alarm, disguised as amusement. Junhyuk opened the car door himself, something he never did. His men tensed. He stepped out slowly, adjusting his cuffs. The girl didn't move. Up close, she looked even worse. Sweat, dirt, a bruise forming on her cheekbone. But her eyes were sharp. You know my name, he said in English, accent minimal. I know a lot of things. That's unfortunate for you. Maybe. She glanced at the men behind her. They'd stopped advancing but hadn't retreated. Waiting. Those men work for someone who thinks they own me, she said. And you're here because you're the only person in Seoul they're more afraid of than angry at. Junhyuk studied her. You're assuming I'll help you. I'm assuming you'll be curious. There it was again. That tone. Not begging, not bargaining, negotiating from a position she didn't have. What makes you think I'm curious, he asked. She tilted her head slightly. Because you're still standing here. Behind them, one of the pursuers finally found his voice. That woman is promised. You have no... Junhyuk raised one hand. Silence. He didn't even look at the man. You're chasing her through my district, Junhyuk said quietly. That makes it my business. We have every right. You have what I allow you to have. The man's jaw worked, but he stepped back. Junhyuk turned back to the girl. Get in the car. She hesitated. And if I don't, then I leave, and they take you, and whatever game you're playing ends badly. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. She walked to the car, climbed in, and sat on the far side of the back seat. Junhyuk didn't follow immediately. He turned to the 5 men. Who sent you? They exchanged glances. We're just doing a job, one finally said. Then your job is finished. We can't go back without... You'll go back with a message. Junhyuk's voice dropped. Tell whoever hired you that the girl is under my protection now. If that creates a problem, they know where to find me. But leave. Now. They left. Junhyuk watched them disappear into the shadows before returning to the car. Inside the car, Amara sat rigid. The door closed, the locks engaged. Junhyuk didn't speak, didn't look at her. Drive, he said. The convoy moved. Amara watched the streets blur past. Her heart was still racing, but slower now. She'd made it. Step 1 complete. She glanced at the man beside her. Kang Junhyuk looked exactly like his photos, which was to say, he looked like every other Korean businessman in a suit until you noticed the details. The way his men moved around him, the way his stillness made the air feel heavier. "Thank you," she said. He didn't respond. "I know that cost you something." Now he looked at her. "You don't know anything about what it cost me." "Then tell me." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'm the reason you smiled." His expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "You noticed that." Everyone noticed that. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Those men will talk." "Good." He raised an eyebrow. "Good? Isn't that how this works? Fear through reputation?" "Fear through reputation is effective until it becomes a target." He leaned back. "By tomorrow, every organization in Seoul will know I intervened in a civilian matter. They'll want to know why. They'll assume you matter." "Maybe I do." "Then you've made yourself valuable, which makes you expensive to keep alive." Amara processed that. "You're saying saving me made me more dangerous." "I'm saying saving you made you a liability I now have to manage." "You could have killed them." "Yes, but you didn't." "No. Why?" Junhyuk looked out the window. "Dead men end stories. Living men spread them. So you let them go to spread fear." "I let them go to spread confusion." He turned back to her. "Fear is easy. Confusion is strategic." The car turned into an underground garage. Amara recognized nothing. "Where are we?" "Somewhere you'll stay until I decide what to do with you." "I'm not asking to stay. You don't have a choice." The car stopped. Doors opened. Amara was led into an elevator, then down a hallway, then into an apartment. It was smaller than she expected. Clean, minimal furniture, one window, bulletproof glass, she assumed. Junhyuk stood in the doorway. "You'll be safe here." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." "Takes for what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to leave. "Wait," Amara said. He paused. "Why did you smile?" For the first time, his expression softened, barely. "Because you reminded me of someone." "Who?" "Myself. Before I learned better." He left. The door closed. Amara heard no lock. Amara woke to silence. Not the comfortable kind, the kind that pressed against eardrums and made you aware of your own breathing. She sat up slowly. The room looked the same as it had when she'd fallen asleep, or passed out more accurately. Her body had finally surrendered to exhaustion sometime after 3 a.m. Now, daylight filtered through the bulletproof window, weak gray, Seoul's winter morning. She stood, testing her legs, still sore from running. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight. She could feel it without touching. The apartment was exactly as sparse as she remembered. Couch, table, kitchenette. One closed door she assumed was a bathroom. No guards, no cameras she could see, no instructions. She walked to the front door, tried the handle. It opened. Amara froze. The hallway beyond was empty, clean, anonymous. She could walk out right now, down the elevator, out into Seoul, free. Except, she closed the door slowly and locked it from the inside, because this wasn't freedom. It was a test. She turned back to the apartment and noticed what she'd missed in her exhaustion, a handwritten note on the table. The handwriting was precise, controlled. "You have 12 hours to decide who you are." No signature, no explanation. Amara read it 3 times. 12 hours to decide who she was, not what she wanted, not where she'd go, who she was. She sat down heavily on the couch. This wasn't protection. This was evaluation. Junhyuk had given her an unlocked door and a deadline. He was testing whether she'd run, and more importantly, testing whether she understood that running would be the wrong move. Because anyone who walked into traffic to get his attention wouldn't walk away after getting it, unless they were lying about what they wanted. Amara looked at the note again. Who you are. She thought about the last 3 months, the arranged marriage, the negotiations she hadn't been part of, the way her uncle had smiled when he told her the good news, as if selling her was a favor. She thought about the research, the bribes, the risk. She thought about standing in front of that convoy, using Kang Junhyuk's real name like a weapon. Who was she? 3 months ago, she would have said, a student, a daughter, someone trying to build a normal life in Seoul despite the odds. Now she was someone who'd gambled everything on a rumor and a street address. Someone who'd chosen the MAFIA over marriage, someone who understood that safety was negotiated, not given. She stood and walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, let the water run hot while she stripped off yesterday's ruined dress. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the question wasn't who she was. Maybe it was who she was willing to become. Junhyuk returned at sunset. Amara had showered, Found clean clothes in the closet, women's clothes, multiple sizes, like this apartment kept a rotation of temporary occupants. She'd chosen simple, black pants, gray sweater, practical. She'd also eaten, made tea, cleaned the kitchen, small acts of domesticity that said, I'm not a prisoner, I'm a guest making myself useful. When the door opened, she was sitting at the table, hands wrapped around a cup. Junhyuk stopped in the doorway. You didn't leave. You knew I wouldn't. I suspected. He entered fully, closing the door behind him. He'd changed clothes too, still a suit but different. Charcoal instead of black, no tie. He looked tired. How long have I been here? Amara asked. 16 hours. Your note said 12. I was curious if you'd hold yourself to my timeline. Did I pass? He almost smiled, almost. You're still here, aren't you? He sat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Tell me about the marriage, he finally said. Amara had prepared for this, rehearsed it in the shower, decided which truths to share and which to bury. My uncle arranged it, she began. I didn't know until 3 months ago. The groom was someone he owed money to. I was the payment. What kind of money? Gambling debts, bad investments, the usual ways men destroy their families. Junhyuk nodded slightly. He'd heard 1,000 versions of this story. And the groom? Korean, mid-40s, I met him once. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He was polite, cold, the kind of man who buys people and calls it generosity. Name? She hesitated. This was the moment. The lie she'd prepared. Han Min-jun. It wasn't entirely false. That was the name her uncle had used. But Amara had done enough research to know it was probably an alias. What she didn't say, that Han Min-jun had worked for a Korean syndicate in Lagos 5 years ago. That he'd vanished suddenly, taking money that was never recovered. That the syndicate he'd stolen from had connections in Seoul. Connections she'd traced through 6 degrees of separation back to whispers about Kang Junhyuk's organization. She didn't say any of that. Because if Junhyuk knew her past intersected with his business, the calculation would change. She'd go from interesting problem to active threat. And active threats didn't get at unlocked doors. Junhyuk was watching her carefully. You're leaving something out. Her stomach dropped. What makes you say that? Because everyone leaves something out. He leaned back. The question is whether it's dangerous or just embarrassing. Maybe both. Then I'll find out eventually. Will you? I always do. Amara met his eyes. What if I told you the whole truth right now? I'd wonder why you didn't before. And if the truth makes me more valuable, then you should have led with it. She smiled slightly. You would have trusted it less. Now he did smile. Small. Sharp. You're learning. I'm surviving. Same thing in this world. He stood, walking to the window. Outside Seoul glittered, a city that never stopped moving, never stopped hiding things. The men who chased you, he said, they'll report back to Han Min-jun. I know. He'll want compensation. For what? A bride who ran? For disrespect. Junhyuk turned back to her. Men like him don't care about the woman. They care about the principle. If he lets you go without consequence, he looks weak. So he'll come for me. He'll try. And you'll protect me? That depends. On what? On whether you're worth the cost. Amara stood slowly, walked toward him, stopped 3 feet away. How do I prove I'm worth it? Junhyuk studied her face, the bruise, the determination underneath. You already did, he said quietly. When you used my name, that made me valuable. That made you expensive. There's a difference. Explain it. Valuable means I want to keep you. Expensive means I have to. He moved past her toward the door. One is a choice. The other is a liability. Which am I? He paused with his hand on the doorknob. I'm still deciding. He left. Amara stood alone in the apartment, heart racing. She'd passed another test, but she could feel the ground shifting beneath her, because Han Min-jun wasn't just a groom she'd run from. He was a ghost from Junhyuk's past, and she was the thread connecting them. The meeting room was underground, no windows, reinforced walls, the kind of place where conversations disappeared. Junhyuk sat at the head of the table. 6 men surrounded him, his inner circle, the ones who'd been with him since the beginning, when territory was measured in blocks instead of districts. Lieutenant Park spoke first. The girl is a problem. Explain. Junhyuk's voice was neutral. Han Min-jun is connected to the Busan Syndicate. They've been quiet for 2 years, but they're watching. If they think we're protecting someone who embarrassed their associate. Han Min-jun isn't their associate anymore, Park blinked. Sir? He was exiled 3 years ago. Embezzlement. He's freelance now. Then why does he matter? Because exile doesn't erase history. Junhyuk tapped the table once. If we protect the girl, we're making a statement. If we return her, we're making a different one. Then the smart move is to return her, said Kim, the financial officer. Cut our losses. Returning her admits we made a mistake by taking her in the first place. Keeping her admits we care. Junhyuk said nothing. Another voice, Choi, head of security, older, cautious. Sir, respectfully, why did you intervene at all? The room went quiet. It was the question everyone had been thinking, but no one had dared ask. Junhyuk looked at each of them in turn. She used my name, he said simply. So? My real name, in public, on a street I control. He leaned forward slightly. How many people outside this room know that name? Park's eyes widened. You think she's connected to someone inside? I think she knew exactly what to say to make me stop. Then she's dangerous. Yes. So why is she still breathing? Junhyuk stood, walked to the corner of the room where a monitor displayed security footage, not from the street, but from the apartment. Amara, sitting at the table, reading, calm. Because killing her doesn't answer the question. What question? Who told her my name, and why? The room absorbed that. Kim leaned back. You're keeping her as bait. I'm keeping her as insurance. Against what? Against whoever's playing games I don't understand yet. Choi shook his head. This is dangerous, sir. If word spreads that we're protecting her, word has already spread. Junhyuk turned from the monitor. Those 5 men I let walk? By now, every mid-level operator in Seoul knows I intervened. The question isn't whether we're protecting her. The question is why. And what do we tell them? Nothing. Let them speculate. Park frowned. Speculation is dangerous. Speculation is controllable. Facts are permanent. Another pause. Then Kim spoke again, voice careful. Sir, when you stopped for her, in the car. He hesitated. The men said you smiled. Every head turned. Junhyuk's expression didn't change. Is that a question? It's an observation? Then observe silently. Kim nodded quickly, but the damage was done. The elephant was in the room now, visible to everyone. Kang Junhyuk had smiled. For a girl, in front of witnesses. Choi cleared his throat. If I may, sir, the real danger isn't that she's a weakness. Then what is it? The real danger is that people will think she's a weakness, and they'll test that assumption. Junhyuk returned to his seat slowly. Let them test it. Sir, if someone moves against her, it tells me who's brave enough to challenge me directly. That's valuable information. It's also a war we might not win. We'll win. How can you be sure? Junhyuk looked at the monitor again. At Amara, sitting alone, reading a book she'd found somewhere in the apartment. Because she's not what they think she is. Then what is she? He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. She's the kind of person who runs toward the thing that scares everyone else. That's not weakness. He stood. That's weaponizable desperation. You're going to use her. I'm going to see if she can be useful. And if she can't? Junhyuk walked toward the door. Then I'll deal with her the way I deal with all expensive mistakes. He left them sitting in silence. 3 days passed. Amara fell into a strange routine. Wake up, shower, eat whatever appeared in the refrigerator overnight. Someone was restocking it while she slept, though she never saw who. Read, think, wait. Junhyuk visited twice more, both times brief, both times asking questions that felt like they meant something else. Do you speak Korean fluently? Conversationally. I'm better at reading it. Useful. Why? He didn't answer. Another time. The men who chased you, did they hurt you before that night? Define hurt. Answer the question. They scared me. Threatened my family. Does that count? Yes. She waited for elaboration. Got none. On the 4th day, he stayed longer. It was late, past midnight. Amara had been reading on the couch when she heard the door unlock. She'd learned to distinguish his footsteps from the guards who occasionally checked the hallway. His were quieter, more deliberate. He entered carrying a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. You drink? He asked. Sometimes. Tonight you do. He poured without waiting for confirmation. Handed her a glass. Sat in the chair across from her. They drank in silence for a moment. You're not a prisoner, he finally said. Could have fooled me. If you were a prisoner, you'd have guards. Locks. Fear. He gestured around the apartment. This is protection. Protection and imprisonment feel similar from the inside. Then you're not paying attention. Amara set down her glass. Explain it to me. Junhyuk leaned forward, elbows on his knees. A prisoner waits to be released. You're waiting to be useful. And if I'm not useful, then you become a prisoner. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. She studied his face. He looked tired again, genuinely tired, not just the exhaustion that came from late nights. This was deeper, the kind that came from carrying weight no one else could see. How long have you been doing this? She asked. Doing what? Running an empire people pretend doesn't exist. He almost smiled. 14 years. That's young. That's surviving. How old were you when you started? 23. Jesus. No Jesus involved, just fear and math. He drank. Fear keeps people in line. Math keeps organizations alive. And what keeps you alive? He looked at her directly. The willingness to walk away from anything. Including me. Especially you. She should have felt afraid. Instead, she felt something else. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You don't trust anyone, she said. I trust people to act in their self-interest. That's not the same as trust. It's better. Self-interest is predictable. Loyalty isn't. Amara picked up her glass again. The whiskey burned. Expensive burn. The kind that reminded you it cost something. Can I ask you something? You just did. Can I ask you something else? He gestured. Go ahead. Why did you really stop for me? Junhyuk was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost tired. Because you used my name like you knew what it meant. I did know what it meant. No. You knew the name. You didn't know what using it would cost. He set down his glass. But you used it anyway. That meant either you were desperate or stupid. And desperate people are dangerous. Stupid people are manageable. I needed to know which you were. What's the verdict? You're desperate, but you're also smart. That combination is rare. Is that good or bad? It's both. Outside, Soul hummed. Even at this hour, the city never stopped. Cars, voices, life continuing despite everything. Junhyuk stood slowly. No one will touch you here, he said. Amara looked up at him. Is that protection or ownership? The question hung between them. For the first time since she'd met him, Junhyuk looked uncertain. Not afraid, not angry, just uncertain. As if the question had revealed something he hadn't expected to face. He turned toward the door without answering. Wait, Amara said. He stopped. That smile, on the first night, why did it scare your men so much? Junhyuk stood with his back to her for a long moment. Because they've seen me kill people without changing expression. His voice was quiet. Seeing me smile was worse. It meant I'd lost control of something. Had you? He looked back at her. His face was unreadable again, the mask back in place. I'm still deciding. He left. Amara sat alone with her whiskey, heart pounding. She'd just watched the most dangerous man in Seoul admit uncertainty. That should have made her feel safer. Instead, it made her feel like she was standing at the edge of something much deeper than she'd imagined. The call came at 4 a.m. Amara woke to voices in the hallway. Urgent. Controlled but tense. She sat up, listening. Men. Multiple. Moving fast. Then, Junhyuk's voice. Calm. Commanding. Secure the perimeter. No one in or out. Footsteps. Running. Silence. Amara stood, moving to the door, pressed her ear against it. Nothing. She was reaching for the handle when it opened. Junhyuk stood there, fully dressed despite the hour. Behind him, Lieutenant Park and 2 armed guards. Get dressed, Junhyuk said. We're moving you. Why? What happened? Han Minjun made contact. Her blood went cold. He knows I'm here? Everyone knows you're here. That was always inevitable. He stepped inside. What I didn't anticipate was his opening move. Which is, he's not asking for you back. Amara blinked. What? Junhyuk walked to the window, looking out at the city. Dawn was still an hour away. The streets below looked like veins, dark, pulsing with hidden movement. He sent a message through a proxy, very formal, very careful. He turned back to her. He wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? I'm the bargaining chip. That's what I thought too. But his message wasn't about you. It was about verification. Amara felt something shift in her chest. Verification of what? Junhyuk studied her face. He wants to confirm something only you can provide. I don't understand. Neither do I, yet. He moved closer. What did Han Minjun tell you about why he wanted to marry you? Nothing. My uncle arranged everything. I never spoke to him directly except once. What did he say that one time? She thought back. The meeting had been brief, uncomfortable. Han Minjun had looked at her the way people looked at furniture they were considering purchasing. He asked if I had family in Nigeria. And? I said yes. My father's side. I haven't seen them since I was a child. What else? He asked. She paused, remembering. He asked if my father had any business partners in Lagos, specifically Lagos. Junhyuk's expression darkened. What did you tell him? I said I didn't know. I was 8 when we left. I barely remember. She looked at Junhyuk. Why does that matter? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. Is this your father? Amara looked at the screen. The photo was old, maybe 15 years. A group of men in business attire, Nigerian and Korean, standing outside what looked like a warehouse. In the center, her father. She'd recognize him anywhere. Yes. How did you? This photo was taken in Lagos, 2009. Junhyuk zoomed in. Do you recognize anyone else? She looked closer. 3 faces away from her father. A younger man, Korean. Smiling. Her stomach dropped. That's Han Min-jun. Yes. He knew my father? More than knew. Junhyuk put away the phone. They were business partners. Import-export. Legitimate on paper? And off paper? Money laundering. Small scale. Mostly moving currency for mid-level operators who needed discrete channels. Amara sat down slowly. You're saying my father was. Past tense. The operation shut down in 2010. Your father disappeared. So did the money. My father didn't disappear. He died. When? 2011. Junhyuk nodded. Car accident. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. She looked up sharply. How do you know that? Because I've spent the last 3 days researching your family. He sat across from her. Han Min-jun didn't want to marry you because your uncle owed him money. He wanted to marry you because he thinks you know where your father's money went. The room tilted. Amara's mind raced backward, her father's death. The sudden move to Seoul, her mother's silence about Nigeria, the way her uncle always had just enough money but never too much. I don't know anything about money, she whispered. He thinks you do. Why would he think that? Because the money that disappeared was part of a larger operation, an operation that belonged to someone else. Who? Junhyuk's expression was unreadable. Me. The word landed like a gunshot. Amara stared at him. Your father and Han Min-jun were laundering money for my organization's international operations. When your father died and the money vanished, Han Min-jun panicked. He fled back to Seoul. I exiled him. Took the loss. Junhyuk leaned back. But apparently he's been looking for that money ever since. And he thinks I have it? He thinks you know where it is or how to access it. But I don't. I believe you. Then why? Because belief doesn't matter. What matters is what he believes. And what he believes is that you're the key to recovering what was taken from him. Amara stood, pacing. Her mind was spinning. This is insane. I don't know anything. I was a child. Were you? She stopped. What's that supposed to mean? It means children see things adults forget they saw. It means your father might have told you something that seemed innocent at the time but means everything now. He didn't. Are you sure? Yes. Then why did you come to me? The question stopped her cold. What? Junhyuk stood. You researched me, found my name, found my territory, walked into traffic to get my attention. He moved closer. Why me specifically? Because you were the most powerful. Seoul has a dozen organizations. Why mine? Amara opened her mouth, closed it, because why had she chosen him? The research had pointed her toward multiple options, but she'd focused on Junhyuk, spent weeks tracking his movements, his properties, his name. Why? And then like ice water, a memory, her father. The night before he died, she'd woken up late, heard voices, walked to his office. Through the cracked door, she'd seen him on the phone, stressed, sweating. He'd been speaking Korean. She hadn't understood most of it, but she'd understood one phrase. Junhyuk will kill me if he finds out. Oh, God. She looked up at Junhyuk. You're right, she whispered. I did hear something. His expression didn't change. What did you hear? My father, the night before he died. He mentioned your name. What did he say? That you'd kill him if you found out. Found out what? I don't know. The door was closed. I only heard pieces. Junhyuk was very still. And that's why you came to me. You remembered my name. Subconsciously, maybe. I don't know. She felt dizzy. This is insane. This is what Han Min-jun has been waiting for. What do you mean? He wasn't asking for you back. He was asking me to confirm whether you remember anything. Junhyuk walked to the window again. Which means he's been watching, waiting to see if I'd figured it out. Figured what out? That you're not a runaway bride. You're a witness. Amara's legs gave out. She sat hard on the couch. A witness to what? To whatever your father and Han Min-jun did with my money. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. False dawn. The city emerging from shadow. Junhyuk turned back to her. Han Min-jun's message wasn't asking me to return you. It was asking me to confirm that you're valuable. And if you confirm it, then I've just told him you're worth the risk of starting a war. And if you don't, Then I've told him I don't know what you're worth, which makes you expendable to both of us. Amara looked at him. So what are you going to do? Junhyuk checked his watch. I'm going to do what I always do. Create confusion. How? By letting you disappear. The plan was simple. Too simple. Amara would leave the apartment before sunrise. No guards, no escort, just her and the clothes on her back. Where will I go? She asked. Wherever you want. That's not a plan. It's the only plan that works. Junhyuk handed her an envelope. Inside, cash. A burner phone with 2 numbers programmed. One is mine, one is a safe house in Etowon. And if I'm followed, you will be followed. That's the point. She stared at him. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as information. He checked his watch. Han Minjin's people are watching this building. When you leave, they'll follow. That tells me how serious he is. And if they grab me, they won't. Not immediately. Why not? Because they'll want to see where you go, what you do, who you contact. He moved closer. You walking out of here alone sends a message that I'm done with you, that you're not worth protecting. So I'm disposable. So you look disposable. There's a difference. Amara wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but she understood the logic. If she stayed, she was a prisoner with value. If she left, she was bait with purpose. Neither option was safe, but one option gave her movement. How long do I have? Before what? Before you decide I'm actually disposable. Junhyuk's expression softened, barely. Longer than you think. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He walked to the door, opened it. The hallway was empty. When you leave, don't look back. Don't run. Walk like you have somewhere to be. And if something goes wrong, use the phone. Press 1. I'll answer. Will you come? He looked at her for a long moment. Yes. She wanted to ask why. Wanted to know if this was strategy or something else. But there wasn't time. She took the envelope, walked to the door, stopped. Junhyuk, he looked at her. That smile on the first night. She held his gaze. You smiled because you recognized something in me, didn't you? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. I smiled because you reminded me what it felt like to gamble everything on one moment. Is that a good thing? I don't know yet. She nodded, turned, walked out. The elevator ride felt eternal. Amara counted floors, controlled her breathing, kept her hands loose at her sides, walked like you have somewhere to be. The doors opened to the parking garage. Empty. Concrete. The smell of oil and exhaust. She walked toward the exit. Steady pace, not fast, not slow. Behind her, nothing. She reached the street, Seoul at dawn, the city between states, night workers heading home, day workers waking up, the liminal hour when anything felt possible. Amara turned left, started walking. 3 blocks later, she felt it. Eyes, not obvious, not close, but there. She kept walking, didn't look back, didn't run. At the intersection, she paused, checked her phone, the burner Junhyuk had given her. 2 numbers saved, one labeled JH, one labeled Safe House. She stared at the screen, then pocketed the phone, kept walking. Junhyuk stood at the window of his office. Lieutenant Park stood behind him, silent. On the monitor, surveillance footage, multiple angles, all showing the same thing. Amara, walking, alone. And behind her, exactly as predicted, 2 cars, dark sedans, keeping distance but not hiding. Han Minjin's people. She's being followed, Park said unnecessarily. Junhyuk said nothing. Should we intervene? No. Sir, if they take her, they won't. Not yet. How can you be sure? Because they're not the only ones following her. Park looked closer at the screen, then saw it. A 3rd vehicle, farther back. Different plates. Who's that? I don't know. Park's expression shifted. That's concerning. Yes. What do we do? Junhyuk watched the girl on screen. She was 3 miles from his building now. Still walking. Still calm. Still moving like she had a destination. But where? He'd given her a safe house. But she hadn't called, hadn't turned toward Itaewon. She was walking east, toward the river, toward the old industrial district, toward the place where he'd first seen her. Sir? Park pressed. Junhyuk pulled out his phone, checked a message that had arrived 3 minutes ago. Unknown number. 4 words. She was never yours. His blood went cold. Get the team, he said quietly. Where? Seo Bingo. Now. What's happening? Junhyuk looked at the screen one more time. Amara had stopped walking. She was standing in the middle of an empty street, looking at something off camera. Then she looked up, directly at the surveillance camera, as if she knew he was watching, as if she wanted him to see. Her lips moved. Park zoomed in, rewound, read her lips. What did she say? Park's face went pale. She said he thought saving her broke his rules. Junhyuk's hands tightened into fists, because he understood now. Too late. But he understood. Amara hadn't run to him for protection. She'd run to him to activate something. Something that had been dormant for 15 years. Something connected to her father. To Han Min-jun. To money that had disappeared. Something connected to him. On the screen, Amara turned. Started walking again. Toward a warehouse Junhyuk recognized. A warehouse that hadn't been used in a decade. A warehouse that had been part of the Lagos operation. The operation where everything had gone wrong. Park was already moving. Team's ready. What are your orders? Junhyuk stared at the screen. At the girl who'd smiled at a surveillance camera. At the girl who'd used his name like a weapon. At the girl who'd reminded him what it felt like to lose control. Sir? Junhyuk spoke quietly. She was never the girl who ran away. Then what is she? He turned from the screen. His face was unreadable, but his voice carried something new. Something that sounded almost like respect. She's the girl who was sent. The monitor went black. And that's where we have to stop part 1. I know you have questions. Who sent Amara? What's really in that warehouse? What did her father do with Junhyuk's money? And most importantly, what happens when he realizes he's been playing her game, not the other way around? Part 2 is coming soon, but only if you subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me your theory about what Amara is really after. Because trust me, nothing in this story is what it seems. See you in part 2 if you're ready for the truth.